Hello, Mr. Kaczynski with you, working on section S of IXL's Algebra 1 skills. This is actually the last skill in that section, transformations of linear functions. Got several examples, so let's get to it. We're going to find g of x, where g of x is a translation 3 units up of f of x. All right, since we're going 3 units up, what we're going to do is replace the output, okay, kind of like y controls the up and down. We're going to replace f of x with g of x minus 3. Okay, which seems counterintuitive because it's up. You would think it'd be plus. But we're going to replace it with minus 3. And maybe it'll make more sense when we solve this for g of x by adding 3 to both sides. There it is. All right, so I've got that red function right there is f of x equals x. Let's do x plus 3. And you can see that it's a translation 3 units up. That we've moved that line 3 units up, or slid it 3 units up. It's called a translation. All right, let's do another. Find g of x, where g of x is a translation 7 units right. Okay, 7 units right. In that case, we're going to replace x with x minus 7. So we're going to do g of x equals x minus 7. All right, so again, maybe a little counterintuitive because right, you would think it'd be plus 7, but it's always going to be subtraction that we're using. And that's our function. Let's see if it works. So remember, the red is x, okay? And if we want to go 7 right, we do x minus 7, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 units to the right. Okay, now we're doing a translation 2 units down. 2 units down. So what we're going to do is replace f of x with g of x plus 2, or minus negative 2. Again, you would think down it would be minus, but it's actually plus. It's always kind of opposite of what you think it is. But then we're going to subtract 2 from both sides, and we get this. G of x equals x minus 2. Again, let's graph it and see. The red is f of x equals x, and the blue is g of x equals x minus 2. And you can see it's been translated 2 units down. One more very basic one here, or no, actually we got a few more. 7 units left, translation 7 units left. So we're going to take and replace x with x plus 7, or x minus negative 7, but faster just to make it into x plus 7. So that should be a translation 7 units left. Let's check. So there's x. We wanted to go 7 units left. Boom. We've translated it 7 units left by replacing x with x plus 7. All right, and then we're going to do some reflections as well. Okay, a reflection across the x-axis. All right, well, all we have to do is replace f of x with negative g of x. Think of f of x as like your y value. So if we're doing a reflection across the x-axis, we'll replace the outputs, or make the outputs the opposite of what they were. And then we'll solve this for g of x by multiplying both sides by a -1, or maybe dividing both sides by -1, so it's g of x equals -x. Let me show you what that looks like on the graph. That's it. So this is the x-axis. If we reflect over the x-axis, okay, this point right here becomes this point. This point right here becomes this point, or opposite of what I'm saying actually. This point became this point. And we've reflected across the x-axis. And reflection across the y-axis, what we're going to do is replace x with -x. Ends up giving us the same exact equation in this case. Okay, so this graph that we have done is also a reflection across the y-axis. This point became this point became this point. All right, let's get to some tougher ones here. 2 units up, translation 2 units up. All right, so we're going to replace f of x with g of x minus 2. Now let's use red. So that's the first step. So again, 2 units up, we're subtracting those 2. Then we're going to solve for g of x by adding 2 to both sides. -9x plus 10. For sake of time, I'm going to not graph this, but I'll encourage you to maybe pause it and graph it if you want to see how this, the blue one is the original one translated 2 units higher. So let's do a translation 1 unit left. All right, in that case, we're going to replace x with x plus 1. So all I've done here, 1 unit left, that's like we're subtracting -1. So all I did was replace the x with that. Now we've got some work to do here because we need to simplify this. So let's distribute the -7 and then combine like terms. The -7 plus 8 would give us -7x plus 1. So this blue function, g of x, is a translation of the original function 1 unit left. Let's do a reflection across the x-axis. All right, so we're going to replace the output, f of x, with -g of x. Make it the output's the opposite. That would give us a reflection across the x-axis. So when we solve for g of x in this case, we're going to multiply both sides by -1 or divide both sides by -1. That's going to make it -6x minus 9. That would be a reflection across the x-axis. And the last one. Let's do a reflection across the y-axis. This is where we replace x with -x. So we're going to do g of x would be equal to -9x, or not -9x, -9 times, instead of x, -x, minus 10. So to simplify, all we do is multiply -9 times -x, and that'll give us 9x. So that's a translation, a reflection of f of x across the y-axis. All right, so good luck. This is transformations of linear functions. Some little confusing stuff there, but good news, you're done with section S of IXL.